And welcome to the Writer's Life, a place where you get the sight, sound, smells, taste of my particular writer's life, and where you get the truth. Nothing but the truth. So help me God, Troy.
Yeah,
Subscribe, slap the like button, and tap the bell for notifications so that you don't miss out on one single uber exciting video. Go to vinzandri.com, pick up Border Crossings, an American crime story. And next week, you'll be able to get the new full length, new Steve Jobs story. I, the judge, get it? Like I, the jury, only this one's I, the judge. Get it?
nice. Like it. Nice title.
And there's a reason I did that too, Troy. There is a reason I did that. Not just for the sound bite. It fits with the story.
That's awesome.
Steve Jobs has to get his 87-year-old mother out of a murder rap.
Ooh, that's
So
kind of a good, intriguing story.
yeah, it's one of those things where, like, by the way, everybody, my guest today is my monthly guest who tells us who has his finger on the pulse of publishing, is a best-selling author himself. He's the head of the Boise, Idaho Writers Conference, or Writers Guild, I should say. Um, he's an unbelievable freelance writer, editor extraordinaire. There's nothing this man doesn't do, um, which is probably why he's single like me. We should date, Troy.
We
Yeah,
should.
yeah,
Very modern.
that's hip
Very
now.
modern of you.
That's like
Yeah,
totally in. What was I
that's the
talking
thing.
about before I rudely interrupted you?
There's something
Oh
about
yes,
your,
yeah,
yeah,
the new Steve Jobs. I'm trying to get this one done. I mean, it's done. It just has to be put together. But I wanted to get this finished. Because when your mother's 87, even if she's in good shape, yeah, you just don't know.
yeah.
But she's sort of in it, so I wanna be able for her to read it, because I had written one specifically for my dad, and he kicked the bucket like 6 months before it came out.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so he
Man.
missed that one. Um, Maybe he wouldn't have liked it anyway. I don't know.
Who
Who
knows?
knows?
Hard to
So
tell.
how's it going, dude?
Good, good.
Did you
Been
have a great
winter
Christmas
here.
season and all that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, it was really fun. It was pretty good. And then lately, it's just been since the 1st of January, we've had nothing but snow. So,
Like,
um,
yeah, you're a
which
skier,
I'm
right?
not complaining about. Yeah, I'm not complaining about that.
Yeah,
Um, except that it'd be nice if it stayed in the mountains. I didn't have to drive in it all the time, but that's no big deal.
I hear you.
So I grew up in it.
Yeah,
So
you guys get big snow. We used to get big snow. Now, like, we had a snowstorm last week, and it was maybe 6 inches, and everything shut down or whatever. It was like, oh my
oh
god.
wow.
We used to get like 2 feet at a time, and like, but at least the mountain has some snow. You know,
Yeah.
I
That's the
was all
important
set.
thing.
I was all set to go on Monday morning because the was that after the snow. Anyway, I was also no, I was all set to go like on Thursday, the day after the snowstorm, and just for the hell of it, like, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna check my ski bag, just in case. Like what could be missing, right? Everything's in there.
Yeah.
Left my ski pants on the mountain last week.
Oh, oh, that's
You
the
know,
worst too.
yep. And that's not even the tragedy of it. The tragedy of it is that I had a nice Italian belt I was using with it that I got in Florence,
Oh,
and they adjusted it perfectly to my size and all this, and I was like, fuck. But who would? It's got to be a lost and found, right? Because who would take
you
ski
would
pants?
think so. You would think
Yeah.
so. Although, I will tell you, we had a weird thing at our gym a while back. There's this bunch of old guys that go in the morning. They're like, we call them the swim club, because they
Yeah.
can't, they got to hobble over to the pool and get in the water because they can't do any,
There's a story for
regular
you, by the
workout.
way.
I'm telling you, yeah, it's not no kidding. But one of them has had his shower shoes stolen like 4 or 5 times. Like, who's going to steal somebody else's shower shoes? You want somebody else's athlete's foot, I guess? I don't
Well,
know. You don't like your own variety?
someone's got a foot fetish. I'm liking this
Yeah,
story the more you tell it to me.
I'm telling you. I don't know. It's weird. But I'm like, why people stuff people take is really weird to me. But
I think the Cthulhu took him.
yeah, yeah, the Cthulhu stories. Well, the first one of those I wrote on a dare. It,
Yeah,
honestly, I wrote it on a dare, but it was people liked it, and so I'm like, well, I guess I got to write a sequel because it's funny and people like it. But I didn't plan to. I was like,
I
it
think it's
wasn't part of my
wonderful.
plan. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I
a
had
lot of fun.
never even heard of the Cthulhu until I was writing this Chase Baker thing, and somehow Lovecraft got into it, and like I hadn't even I so in other words, I didn't hear about Cthulhu till like a year and a half ago or something like that. I had
Oh
no
wow,
idea,
yeah, yeah.
you
It's kind of
know.
a nerdy thing, and yeah, I mean, I've read Lovecraft when I was probably in my 20s. Probably in
Okay,
my 20s, I read a lot of sci-fi, so I probably read him when I was in my 20s.
all right.
So yeah.
I have to say, as much as I love the genre and write in the genre, I have never read Lovecraft, but I need to
Oh
do
wow.
so. And he's from Rhode
Yeah.
Island,
Oh yeah.
where
Yeah.
I
He's
spent
really
my
good,
college.
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very influential, and he was a speedy pulp writer, right? Like,
Very, very speedy pulp writer. And really, what happened with the Lovecraftian style, um, the Cthulhu universe and all that kind of stuff, is his fans took over and started writing a lot of different books in that genre and around. So there's a lot of different Cthulhu worlds, um, even though there's some commonalities, and it's really interesting because a lot of fans took over, a lot of fan fiction came out of it, and then a
right,
lot of other people integrated it into their books. And so it became kind of a phenomenon. And it was really, as far as the overall of Lovecraft's work, it's a very small part of it.
right.
But just kind of became classic, and people took it over and started doing their own thing with it, and it worked out for them. So
So, what in your opinion? I mean, I want to get to the modern stuff too, but real quickly, what in your opinion? Like, what's the real definition of a pulp fiction writer, as opposed to say a literary writer or just a crime writer who puts out a book or two a year, or something like that?
yeah, I mean, pulp, I think, really was, well, at least for a while, they were relatively short books. They were produced really quickly and they were very cheap. And so I think, especially at the time, the fact that they were produced so quickly, and then also they usually had kind of that dark theme to them, kind of like the Lester Dent
Right,
type stuff, uh, where it was darker, more noir, a little not so happy, even kind of regardless of what subgenre it was very, much tragedy, drama type stuff. Um, and some of it was kind of formulaic and cheesy, but probably the interesting thing for modern stuff is the reason that stuff sold is because it works. It
right.
works. People like that kind of predictable story where they know the good guy's going to win, but he's flawed. He has all these things that he runs into. People love those kind of stories. They always have, probably always will. So
Yeah,
kind of interesting.
it still works.
Yeah, it still
It
works. Still works. People love them.
still, yeah, and I think I've always been drawn to it. Um, I think when like I loved comics, and I love, like Sergeant Rock and all that sort of stuff. And I think um, when like Raiders of the Lost Ark came out and stuff like that, I'm like, I want to write stuff like that, and I want to do stuff like
Mhm.
that. You know what I mean? I mean, I just love that
Yeah,
romance and adventure kind of
yeah,
thing, And so, like, geez, if you could do that for a living, what the hell,
yeah. Exactly. Well, and there was a lot of that romance element in the pulp too. There was always a
Oh,
love
sure.
interest. She was always in trouble. The hero
Yep.
always saved her.
Right.
Stuff like that. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, the damsel in distress. I mean, it's still
yeah.
a attractive, despite
Hmm.
political times and all that sort of stuff. Um, so let me ask you, so I don't keep you too long on this wonderful Friday evening. Um, okay, we're like almost three-quarters of the way in January. What have you noticed, if anything, about the publishing climate so far? I can tell you this much. I think I feel like sales are up, but I'm just coming at it from a real
Hmm.
microscopic level. So you have to come at it from a
I
macro level.
I think that sales are up, and this is something that happens frequently in January, though. People get Kindles, they get
Right.
money, they get gift cards, stuff like that, and then we got to fill their Kindles. They got to do something with it.
Yeah.
So it's not unusual, although I think it is a little stronger than it's been in previous years. Can't really explain that necessarily. So that is one of the trends in publishing. The other is the interesting fact that thrillers and mysteries are really making a run. They've really moved to the second top selling spot behind romance, and they're really like selling super well. And where romance has always been pretty solidly in first, thrillers and mysteries are kind of pretty close behind right now, actually. Um, and that's kind of interesting to me. I don't know if it's just the political climate is interesting. Like 2020, uh, thriller sales went up, stuff like that. So I don't know if it's just related to the times and what's happening, or people are just turning more to a genre that's different than romance. They're not finding that as attractive. I don't know. Just
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, everything goes in cycles, I would
Mhm.
imagine, still, and, certainly it's still expensive to live these days or whatever, and, it almost reminds me a little bit of 2011, 2012, 2013, when it was a similar, and this is not to be political, but it was a similar, if not the same, regime in the White House or whatever, and things were expensive then, because the previous administration, even in 2008, had made the country insolvable. No, that's not right. In,
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
insolvent,
Well, yeah,
insolvent. Um,
2007, 2008 was really
the crash,
it was really shitty for everybody in a lot of different
right?
ways. Like I had just before that gotten out. I worked in the motorcycle industry for a while, and I just got out of the motorcycle industry in like 2007, 2008. That whole entire industry crashed because nobody
Right,
had disposable income.
right.
And at times like that, first of all, books are cheap, but they're a cheap escape. The other thing I
That's right.
think that's happening is we have an overwhelming deluge of streaming content, and people are fed up with what it's costing them. They're
Right.
going, well, I ditched cable so I could have streaming services, and now I've got 16 streaming services, and they cost me
Yeah.
more than cable did, you
Right.
know? And so they're looking for ways to cut back on that, but still looking for that entertainment, that escape. And books are that entertainment and escape. And
Right.
they kind of always have been something that people turn to when other forms of entertainment aren't working for whatever reason, or they're too expensive. People have always been able to turn to books because, as far as entertainment goes, they're relatively inexpensive, they're extremely portable, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, um, yeah, I mean, I just think that that's a part of the equation is the seeking of affordable entertainment that is not necessarily connected, like we talked about before, connected to big tech. People are
Right.
looking at more buying direct from authors and buying more books very simply because it's just cheap entertainment. It's what
Yeah.
they're looking for.
Yeah. It's funny
So,
because in 2011, I remember speaking with a friend of mine who works on Wall Street, and I was like, Pete, what do you think? What do you think the reason is for this? Why are sales so good and all this? He's like, dude, it's cheap entertainment. And
mhm,
and and it was almost like he was saying, like, it's that pulp magazine, we'll go back to that, from the
mhm.
1930s during the Depression, where, like, no matter how broke you were, like, a housewife could set aside, like, the nickel or the whatever it costs, a nickel or something like that, would put that aside, and, like, she would have her magazine for the week, and those magazines contained what, like, a couple of novels, a few short stories,
Sometimes,
maybe an
yeah.
article.
Couple novels, what we'd call novellas now, some short
Right,
stories, and you could pick up novels, the pulp novels, for a quarter.
right.
And so and so if you, I mean, I'm sure I'm not going to do the math and adjust it for inflation, but I'm sure a 3.99, 5.99 book is something similar in that,
It's got to be about the same.
range,
Yeah. Right.
where you're picking those up on Kindle for 5.99, and they're
Yep.
the same thing as pulp paperbacks. I've always said ebooks are the new paperback, the new pulp
Yep.
paperback, because you read them and you throw them away. Like, you didn't save your pulp novels for the most part. they were cheap entertainment, quick entertainment, then you were done with them and you moved on to the next thing you were doing, right?
Right.
And that's what's happening with ebooks. People read them, they consume them, then they're done with them and they sit on their Kindle and they don't necessarily go back and reread that. I mean, most of
Mhm.
my books are not. Some of them are those philosophical, you can reread, get some literary out of that, but most
Right.
of them are just fun adventures. Read them, have
Sure.
fun, move on with your life. I don't expect you to reread them or keep a hardbound copy on your shelf or whatever as some kind of classic. That's not really what I'm writing. And that's
Right.
the pulp authors knew that about their writing. They knew what they were doing, but they were doing it because that was the way at the time to make a living. The same as people are doing ebooks
Right.
now as authors. The reason we do it is the way to make a living.
That's
We
right.
can get to do this thing we love to do and get paid for it.
And we're good
So,
at it. You
yeah,
got to be good at it,
yeah,
and so
gotta be
knock
good
on
at it.
wood that we're halfway decent at it,
Yeah,
because there's worse ways to make a living, that is for sure. And
yeah.
people are like making really good money. And back in the 30s,
Hmm.
some of those guys were becoming millionaires. Like just,
Hmm.
like those pennies added
During
up.
the Depression, yeah, during the Depression, they were thriving because they were providing that cheap entertainment. And it's really just that, and even then, it was about discoverability, right? Somebody discovered your pulp novels, they just consumed them all, right? Well, what are we trying to do now as writers? Become discoverable. People find our stuff. Everybody reads it voraciously, right? And we sell
Right.
lots of stuff that costs a penny. I
Right.
mean, but the equivalent, not the, but it's so I think that's definitely a part of why sales are up. I think the other thing is people are looking for people that are real. There's a bunch of this AI trend crap out there,
Right.
and it's garbage.
It
It's
is
just
garbage. Yeah.
garbage, first of all. And I think people are starting to see the difference. What they want is that humanity in stories, and I think what's going to set things apart is what I've said this year is the quality of your content is going to be king. And by quality, what I mean is not because you have every comma in place or every whatever, because an AI can do that, but the humanness of your content is what's going to set you apart.
Right.
And if you're pushing out a whole bunch of stuff that's plagiarized, looking at you, Mark Dawson, or that's AI generated, looking at some other top authors that are doing this stuff to just boost their numbers. In the end, you're going to lose. And I think that's going to happen this year. We're going to see what AI become what it should be, a tool
Right.
that helps us.
Right.
And we're going to see people that are abusing it and using it too much. We're going to see them fail.
I
And it's just going to
and
happen.
I almost feel like Amazon, or KDP rather, well, which is Amazon. They're just asking people, did you use AI in
Hmm.
this creation of this store? And I just hit no and move on from there. And I wonder if eventually they're going to throw a net. Like, all right,
I think they are.
this
Yeah.
is a way of getting you on our radar because we're going to find out. We're definitely going to find out.
Yeah.
You mentioned Mark
The
Dawson. What about him?
tools. Oh, you didn't? Well, so there
I
was a
didn't.
reader. It
We got some
started as
scoop,
a
ladies and
Reddit
gentlemen.
thread. It started as a Reddit thread, and there was a guy who went through. He noticed some things in some of Mark Dawson's books that were like,
He's the British guy,
that
right?
sound like it came from. Yeah, that sounded like the guy that runs the self publishing school and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And he said that doesn't sound, it sounds like that came from somewhere else, and it's too specific to be that two guys came up with the same thing. And so he started to dive deeper and do more and more comparisons. And he created a document with literally dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of instances of plagiarism out of Mark Dawson's books.
No kidding. I did not
And
know this. This is why we have
for us,
Troy on.
so, and this is part of the thing is, first of all, this is partly a fault of writers and even readers putting someone on a pedestal, right?
Right.
We put someone, this guy is the best, he's the most professional, he runs the school, he's got to be awesome. And we put somebody on this pedestal, which is a sure way to get to see them fall because everybody's going to make mistakes.
Right.
But second of all, it's also about this model of the more books that I write, the more money that I make, and I've just got to keep up this image. He's not doing the work, he's keeping up the image because he wants to keep up the image to continue making the money. You know what I
Right.
mean? So he's not, for me, there would be no joy in plagiarizing someone else's work.
Yeah,
It's not my story. It's not my story. So what is the point of me telling it? Right? So I have no desire to plagiarize what somebody else is doing. No desire at all. It brings me no joy, no satisfaction. And part of the reason I write is to bring me joy and satisfaction.
I
So
assume
screw
he
that.
was
I'm not going to do it.
right. I assume
You
he was
know,
plagiarizing before the AI, like ChatGPT, Open AI came out.
I that's what I understand. And I mean, I haven't dived super deep into it because partly like I don't necessarily want to come on and go, okay, let's bash people for whatever choices they made or whatever, right? But
Right,
it's just it goes as an example of an abuse of a system
right,
and to game a system to make more money. But eventually, there's tools to check plagiarism. The tools to check for AI, for the use of AI, are getting better and better.
right,
So the more those tools evolve, the harder it's going to be to slide stuff under the radar.
right.
And these people are going to get caught, and they're going to get. The problem is readers will lose respect for your reputation, and it's going to take you forever to gain that trust back. Okay,
If
you're
if this
building
guy,
trust with readers.
right, if
You
this
know.
is true, if it's true, and I mean, he deserves his due process. But if it's true, he's done. He's finished. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
if he plagiarized, it's 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 not even. I mean, like I remember Stephen Leather when I was at Thomas and Mercer. It was like, can everybody write a blurb for Stephen Leather's new book? And then we found out he had several accounts where he was like, even his own fellow Thomas and Mercer authors bashing them with terrible reviews. And so they
Oh,
had to like, oh shit, we got to get rid of him. But he's still up and running.
yeah.
He was like, well, no skin off my back, like I'm just doing what
Yeah.
but still a scumbag move, right? Like
Yeah.
I lost all respect for him
Yeah.
at that time. And if you're listening, I hope you hear it. But it's a whole nother. Well, it's in the same category, but it's just
Well,
like
and he loses the respect of authors who are in part paying his bills because they respect him, so they're taking his classes on how to market better and how to write better books and how to do this stuff. And so for me, if you're telling me this is how I should do this is what I should do, and then you're backtracking to that and saying, "Oh, well, now I find out that you plagiarize stuff." Well, you know what? Then I lost respect for you as a fellow author. So I'm not going to take your courses anymore. I'm not going to
no,
listen to what you have to say anymore. So
right,
you've lost both sides of your peers and fellow authors and readers because I can't respect somebody who's going around plagiarizing stuff. It
no,
because to me it or somebody who's using 100% AI to create their work. I
right,
can't respect that. Readers have a hard time respecting that. So and I think it's going to be just like so AI generated audiobooks, which is a completely different thing. I actually think that they will make it, that it'll be okay. Readers are going to
right,
like those
right, right.
because there's going to be a cheap version of the audiobook that's just that AI voice, and there's going to be the expensive version that's actually done by a human narrator. And some people are going to buy the cheap stuff. That's fine.
Right.
That's fine.
We
But
last talked December 5th,
mhm,
and we were talking about the AI generated voiceovers for
mhm,
the audiobooks. And since then, I've put like 30 books into
yeah,
the AI narrated voiceover, and I got like my first review from someone, and it was a very nice review. And he said the only I don't I stupidly don't go through it, like what I don't like to listen to my own
mm,
stuff. I got this thing, but he's like my only complaint was that the word Polish it sounded like polish, but he's like otherwise it was good. It was like didn't bother
yeah,
me, and it was, and I think they're still giving them away for free at this point, as far as I know. I don't know if we're earning any money on it yet,
mhm.
but it's definitely
Yeah, and
a
it
good
depends
tool
on
to have.
where you distribute. And the Google ones, the ones that Google creates, you can distribute several different places now.
Okay,
So the market for it is changing, and I think some readers will adapt, some readers won't. That's
right,
okay. we can still continue to create other types of audiobooks as well and give people choices.
Right.
But the point is to be upfront about it. If I'm going to sell an AI generated voice on my audiobook, I'm just going to put it right up front in the description. This is AI generated.
Sure.
This is your cheap version.
Right.
And for me, that's perfectly okay as long as you're being honest about it. My biggest thing is those authors that I've discovered, even on the freelance side of doing things, who are using AI, then denying it, saying they're not using AI,
Right.
and you're like, yeah, you are. You are
Right.
using AI.
Right.
And I don't care if you do to a certain extent as long as you're honest about it and you're using it as
Right.
a tool, not as a replacement for you. But
Precisely.
it's one of those things that like the upfront honesty about it from the beginning is the most important aspect of it, I believe.
Right.
And if we're not being honest with readers, we're going to get found out, and that's a career-ending game right there.
I believe
Career
that will
ender.
happen this year. A lot of people are going to be found out. Quick question before I let you go. Now, like I said, I have those 30 books or so on Kindle Direct Publishing. I've used the AI tool for narration. Now, can the books I have on Google Play, can I also just have it redone there? I mean, can I also run them through the
I don't
AI
know.
there?
I'm not the only reason I haven't used the KDP version is because I'm afraid they're going to make an exclusive clause like they did for Kindle Unlimited,
Oh,
and
I
then
see.
you're not going to be able to sell that audiobook somewhere else.
Oh, I
And
see.
so
I should have thought of that.
I'm right now I'm avoiding that and using Google instead to create them because Google doesn't have those limitations
Right.
yet.
Yep.
So I don't know if Amazon does yet. I didn't read the fine print, but Amazon's desire to control those things makes me nervous about them wanting to do that eventually.
Right.
Um, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. I do know that they're not letting you download the audio and use it somewhere else.
Right.
Last I understood.
Yeah. No, I can't do
So
that.
you'd have to create another version. Now, I think you could create another version with a live narrator, with a
So long
human
as it's not
narrator.
exclusive.
I don't think they could stop you from that as long as it's not exclusive.
Right.
So
I mean, like I
that's
have,
the biggest thing is, avoid that
right.
exclusivity.
Right. I have, like I've put a lot of books into paper on Draft to Digital that are already in paper on KDP.
Well, yeah,
And they're
paper
better
is
looking books,
not the
to be honest.
paperback versions. Yeah, the paperback versions are not exclusive, and Draft to Digital is a much better platform. If you're going to
Right.
sell direct, Lulu or Book Vault are the way to
Right.
go because they'll print them on demand and ship them for you, so you don't have to have a warehouse at your house. Um,
Right.
so that's why that you make a little less money, but you do less work. And I'm all about less work as far as
Yes.
that type of work. I just want to write, you
Yeah.
know. Um,
Exactly.
so so but yeah, so there's options out there, and those things are not exclusive. None of those things are exclusive. So you can distribute those everywhere. So as long as audio remains the same way, I know if you do things through Audible, then there's some exclusivity that happens there. They
Okay.
distribute to a limited number of retailers, but you can't just pop it off of there and
No.
you know distribute it
Very
somewhere
interesting.
else. So
Very
yeah,
interesting.
it's really
Troy,
interesting. I think it's going to be a fascinating year. I really
I
do.
do too. Every time you come on, like I learn so much.
Oh,
Um,
well, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
I mean, you got the breaking news, you got everything up. Like, Vinny was head up his butt all the time, like, so, like I need, it's so refreshing to have you on once a month to fill us in on really what the pulse of the publishing industry is all about at present. And I have a very optimistic feeling about the year going
Yeah,
forward, as opposed to last year. I didn't feel so optimistic, but I have a
yeah.
good feeling about
Same,
this year. But who knows? Well, thanks, Troy. We'll
same.
see you next month.
You betcha. All right. Thanks, man. We'll see you next month. Take care.
All right, brother. I will talk to you soon.
All
And
right.
everybody else, ciao, ciao.